How is AI transforming public services in the UK? From smart chatbots to automated admin, it's redefining delivery, supporting 41% of tasks and unlocking up to 45 billion in annual savings. While challenges remain, national efforts in training and open source tools are bridging the gap. So, our panel for this discussion are Councillor Vic Pool. I'll try to remember to call you Vic and not Vicky, the Executive Portfolio Holder for Transformation and Corporate Programmes at West Berkshire Council. Tim Spears, the Director for Customer and Digital Services at Cambridge County Council. Oliver Large, policy expert for the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, and David Terra, CEO of Tech Industry Forum. So, Vic, if I can start with you, what are the benefits of using AI in the public sector, but also what are the risks?
Well, I'm going to do that the other way around. I'm going to look at the risks first, because the risks is the one where everyone generally tends to go to first. So the risks is about the sharing of data and data being present in a place that you're not expecting. Now, ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, all of those applications, they can also get behind the firewall. So there's a risk that has to be taken there. So from a West Berkshire perspective, a lot of our focus has been around, managing the policies, updating the processes in order to ensure that no sensitive data is ever put into that domain. Now, moving into the benefits. So once we had all that down, and once we understood that, we've been able to do really, really creative things. So for example, I'll give an example here, a live example for us. So in our adult social care team, there's a lot of legislative changes that come through to help people live in their own homes for longer, adjust their care plans as and when their needs change. And in order for us to get access to that funding and look after that person as best we can, we need to fill out forms and do procedures, and we have to reference relevant legislation and code. Every time that legislation gets updated, it's a manual process for the social worker to go and find that information. So what the digital team here created was a repository of all of that information, and then the social workers query that database, and then that information gets pulled back, which means that they're always looking at latest legislation because it's a drag and drop. It means that the report takes them a few minutes to check. And when we pull the information, we also pull across the link to the latest legislation, so the social worker can go and check that it is looking at the right file, it is looking at the latest information. So what that essentially gives the social workers and the team itself is a quicker way of working. And there are lots of ways that we do this as well. This is just one example. And by focusing on that delivery, we're able to do the administrative part of the function much more quickly, which means we can spend more time looking after the people and more time being client facing, which is wonderful.
Tim, if I can come to you, and apologies, Spires, Cambridgeshire County Council, do you want to come in on that?
So in terms of benefits, I think in local government, we know that technology is a key enabler for improving services, for making services more efficient. So I think in terms of benefits, what I would say is it's huge. This is huge. This is such an opportunity. I mean, I remember the internet coming in. This feels to me as big as that, as big as that time, as big as the mid-90s, if not bigger. So I think for us in local government, Tanya and colleagues, I think this is it's such an opportunity. Everything. I mean, Vic's given some really good examples of around social care, and we're doing similar. But I think it's across the board, isn't it? I think everything that we're doing, there's opportunities. But then going to the risks, Tanya, I think it's the flip side is, of course, there's things like hallucinations in artificial intelligence where it can get it wrong. It's trying to be, I've got a black Labrador at home, and it wants to come back like my black lab. It wants to come back, and it wants me to be pleased. So you've got risks such as hallucinations to manage. I think other risks are around fear, because this is a huge opportunity. But I think the hype, I don't know where Gartner say we are now with the hype cycle, but there's been a lot of hype around AI. And I think what I would say is that the hype has promoted it, but it's also increased the risk around this, because actually this is not new. Adoption of it in local government is new, and we need to work that out in an ethical, responsible way where it also includes humans. But I mean, this is a huge subject, Tanya, isn't it? As you sort of said, this is huge. But I think that's sort of initial thoughts from me. I'll give way and let some others also come in, Tanya.
David?
Yeah, a couple of things I wanted to say. I mean, interestingly, Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, which is now the most valuable company in the world because of AI, was at the Beijing Expo in China. And one of the things he said was that AI will be central to every industry, company, product and service. And AI has sparked a new industrial revolution. And I think there's two things about that. The first is, yeah, it's probably arguably the fifth industrial revolution. And with any industrial revolution, there are new jobs created as well as jobs being lost, and eventually, when you get through the disruption that's caused by this tech thing that's happened, we'll end up being better off for it. But certainly, when you're in the middle of that problem of the kind of productivity that we're talking about, which potentially means people will need less staff to do certain things, is really tricky. And the other kind of complication, to lead on from what Timothy was saying, is it's all about getting the right data into our large language models that are feeding off the generative AI tools that we're using. Just like with any tech, it's all about getting the data right, and this the kind of black box nature of AI makes it even more difficult to be transparent about and be sure that you're getting it right. And then the last thing I'll say is that the other thing that makes this particular industrial revolution different is that pretty much anybody who's got access to a phone or a screen can use it and do things with it. So I think this is different from the previous industrial generations because it's been democratized, so everyone can be involved and make use of it. And that includes the bad actors as well as the good people.
I think this one's for you, Vic, from Sue Roberts. How do we mitigate for data bias and protect vulnerable people?
So the data bias in itself, well, in fact, there's a couple in here that I can respond to. So typically, we don't actually put any sensitive data into any of our AI bots or any of our applications and processes. And what we do is we attribute a user ID code, so everyone will have a unique identifier. So none of that data is then presented. So should any information ever be leaked, all they've got is user identifier code, and they don't have how that information is then mapped. And on the data bias, it's essentially you can mitigate that by how you use the prompting in the code in the back end. And a lot of the results are all manually checked. In fact, all of the results are manually checked here at West Berkshire, so that we just do a check and balance on all the data in itself before we make any decisions. So we use AI to get the data and to demonstrate results, but fundamentally the decision is always made by a human. We're just cutting out the working out time. So whilst the data is there, it's not really subject to any data bias.
This is an absolute belter from Claire Aspel. Local government is strapped for cash and investing in tech is a matter of priority. So what does the panel believe to be their top 3 techs that local government should invest both money and staffing resources into? As you're from the Tech Industry Forum, David, I'm going to start with you.
I think essentially, I think it's a matter of diving in and actually looking at the processes within government and figuring out where you can make quick savings and efficiencies to generate kind of resources to do more things. So I think just like commercial organisations, government needs to actually think about, each department needs to think about this holistically and look and actually get everybody involved, have a culture whereby everybody is actually thinking innovation and thinking of ways that they could actually improve what you do. So you end up actually changing things and making quick wins to actually help justify more investment in AI. Because obviously one of the complications we've got is that the business case and the ROI for some things may be tricky, but if you go for the simple process steps as a start and then lead from those successes.
I'm going to come back to Oliver because it looks like it's settled down your end, Oliver. We kind of had you midway through the potentials, but also have you got 3 top techs that local government should invest both money and resources into?
Yeah, so I'll try and come up with 3 as I speak, but I was just saying that our analysis shows that around in each council, in one particular council, there could be around a £30 million per year saving, or around 26% of time saving. And that extrapolated across the country could mean around £8 billion across England, or around £325 per household. So there's a huge amount of potential for the benefits of AI to be realized. I think in terms of the 3 big or 3 tech things that you can do now, I agree with David. I think you need to start with easy to lift efficiencies that can be implemented pretty quickly, where the data is there and where it can be done safely. I also think there are types of decisions that are higher risk because they affect people's lives, and there are lower risk applications that can be done now, for example, in back-end office applications. So just to sort of plug some really fantastic work that I.AI, the incubator for AI in central government, is doing. They are developing products like, for example, Minute, which will save, apparently on early tests, around 1 hour of administration for every hour meeting that you're doing through the transcription service that it provides. But also other things like Extract, which is a tool that can process data or pull data from PDFs and from unstructured data and make it into machine readable data. So that is a really interesting tool that can save a huge amount of time for people who are manually entering information.
Fantastic. Timothy?
Just mute there. So I think I'm on the same page. I think I think David was also saying earlier as well, this is a huge moment for us, technology wise, right? But, and here's the thing, we've invested in local government a lot of money in tech over the last couple of decades. Have we really seen the benefits? No, I don't believe we have. And I think where we need to start on this is not the shiny new toy sort of, the glitzy, let's go for this or whatever, all these big numbers. I think it's the basics, it's the foundations, it's people, it's data, it's processes. Those would be my 3. I know they're not exactly what the person that's asked the question, Tanya, is after, but I think it has to be those foundations. For those that follow me on LinkedIn, I posted something like this the other day about people, data, processes. For me, that's where this starts.
Vic, finally you.
Oh, wow. Where do I start? I could put my counsellor hat on.
You've only got 3, so
So as a council that is using both Magic Notes and Minute, we are doing A and B testing on that, and we're finding different applications for use in different areas. So Magic Notes is very, very good. We do use it within our adult social care suite. We've also looked at using it within our children's suite, and we're also beta testing with Minute. So we're part of the alpha test on that one. Using transcription software is changing the game here for us, because it no longer needs manual notes typing up, and then we just check the notes through the executive cycle team, which is very, very helpful. And in fact, using one of those tools is something that I would recommend because it allows the administrative function to increase. The other thing that I put down here is intelligent use of databases. So this doesn't need everyone to have a license. You could have someone who creates for example, a custom bot on ChatGPT. It's a custom MyGPT, I think it's called. And you could query that. You can have your own internal variant where it allows you to query and use your own database. that's pretty cool and pretty nifty, and that doesn't necessarily come with a high cost. Magic Notes and Minute are both going to be usage-based costs, which means that the cost can spiralize. So you have to be very, very mindful of that. And the other thing that I'll say, from reducing time and increasing efficiency, a lot of councils up and down the country have started to look at, and I don't think there's very many adopters, of using AI on their refuse collecting vehicles. Those vehicles with AI can monitor the temperature of the road, so they can say if it needs gritting. It looks at potholes, so you can see if any potholes need replacing, or if whether or not the road needs skimming or resurfacing. And that is intelligent use of time, so it saves anyone or any resident raising tickets and having manual staff going out to inspect, because you've got all the data there, it's all live. So I think it's a case of, so those are the three things, but you can essentially wrap that all up as intelligent capture of data.
David, I know you wanted to chip in very quickly.
I was basically to agree with Timothy about it's all about the basics, and Oliver and Vic both mentioned something called Minute, which I believe is actually part of a collection of products called Humphrey, which I think is a brilliant name to actually kind of invoke Yes Minister and Sir Humphrey Appleby.
I was about to say, we know who that. We know what they've been watching.
It's just, I think it's audacious and brilliant that they've called them that name. But they are all about foundational stuff. There's a consult product that's a tool for analysing and summarising responses to public consultations. There's the Minute product, which helps, saves all the, does all the transcription of meetings. There's Parlex, which is a tool that helps policymakers search through and analyse parliamentary debates from decades past. Redbox, which is a generative AI tool that assists civil servants day to day in summarising policy documents and drafting briefings. And then there's Lex, which provides legal analysis to support civil servants in decision making. All kind of practical, basic stuff, which is I think where we need to kind of like focus first in investing in stuff.
Lily says, what about the risks relating to the environmental impact of AI? Anyone on that one? David, you're nodding. Go for it.
Just to say, it's a huge topic, because quite obviously all of this artificial intelligence and more sophisticated searching and everything that we're going to do needs an awful lot more horsepower. So we need loads more data centers, and all those data centers are going to be energy hungry. So one of the complications we've got is balancing those two needs. It's going to be a really tricky challenge. But we have to start thinking about the data centers being produced, created in different ways, using water cooling instead of air, and maybe finding uses for that warm water so that we can heat a community that's next to the data center. We need a different kind of thinking in our data centers, but it's a huge challenge that is staring us in the face.
A wonderful phrase, joined up thinking, by the sounds of it. Vic, I think this one's for you. Will there be training for social workers on how to use AI?
If you're at West Berks, yes, there is. A lot of the training.
Is it an issue? Would you say in a wider thing, is it an issue in a word?
So most training is delivered within councils themselves, because you have to adhere to their policies and their guidelines. And by use of or by going through generic training, you run the risk of not being in alignment with the other policies within your council. I would expect to see a lot of more AI training for social workers and all other users made available to the staff member through their council. At the minute, I'm not aware of any big national training platform that's offering AI standard, because AI policy is determined by the council. And I would expect that to come from the councils themselves. Sorry.
Tim, did you want to chip in on that?
Sorry, on what particular, Tanya?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were putting your hand up to come in on training. No, that's fine. I will crack through.
Well, no, on training. As I've sort of started, Tanya, in training, yeah, it's key, right? So I think, but for me, it is about joined up. I think someone else said that, but training, of course. And I do think post, pandemic, we have a digital skills gap. Never mind AI. I think there's a digital skills gaps. So what I would say, Tanya, is across the board, there is a need for training and development.
Oliver or Timothy, I think for probably for you, but let's go for Oliver. James McCreath said there's still a great deal of fear around using AI, especially in the public sector. How do we reassure users in the safe use of AI?
Big topic. I think part of the answer is around the narrative that leaders try and tell around artificial intelligence. Ultimately, it's a tool that can be used for both sort of benefit and also for harm. And what Vicky said, what Vic said earlier was that what you're enabled to do by using artificial intelligence is to shift from coordination to care, from administration to frontline delivery. And that narrative and telling that story around what it means for the workforce and what it means for the organization as a whole is critical to relay to people to assuage those particular fears. I think the other thing as well is that there's a lot of AI products out there, many of which are not very good quality and or can be sold as AI when they're not AI. And so I think there's a huge piece around evaluating what the benefits are for different AI tools. And so I think that there's a huge gap in terms of evidencing exactly what those benefits are for people. And then finally, I think one of the best predictors of adoption for AI and reduction of fears around AI is around peer-to-peer engagement. Doctors trust doctors, teachers trust teachers. And if you can relay some of those sort of case studies and those stories and enable that sort of network effect of different practitioners who are able to show what AI has meant for them in their role, that is a huge benefit to reducing risk around adoption.
Daniel Winters asked, and I think we've covered it, but if anybody thinks there's something we should chip in on, please let me know. I think the main problem we have as local government is the problem of assessing the market for AI products and identifying where it will work for us in terms of service improvement and efficiency. Where do we even start as a local authority given our limited resources? Does somebody, Timothy?
Well, it goes back to what I was saying before, Daniel. I think it is about it's about getting your house in order, and I think it's about making the right decisions. And that sounds very glib, but I think it is based on people, data, processes, priorities. Even what are your priorities as an organisation, and then identifying use cases, as Vic has given examples of. The ones that are important to you in your council. But learning from others, attending things like this, I suppose, and all other opportunities to collaborate, because we know that local government does work in silos, but we are all dealing with the same issues and also have the same opportunities. So I think any opportunity to collaborate, Daniel, would be a good one. Tanya, can I just add on another thing that I'd like to share, and that is that there's a lot of fear around artificial intelligence. But actually, one of the sort of side benefits that I hear of from councils is actually once they start properly adopting AI, what actually happens, rather than it improves service. So it actually gives more time, because a lot of people want to use digital AI, whatever, but those that can't, maybe they're digitally excluded, or they have needs that mean they can't engage with the council digitally. It actually gives councils more capacity to get. I've heard this from a number of councils. It's increased their capacity to actually provide that human sort of service to those that need it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. Gina Walton says, has anyone used AI such as magic notes for safeguarding and DOLS processes given the legal court implications?
So I think I mentioned earlier that West Berkshire uses magic notes within adults and children's. I don't know if it's been used in a court setting, but I know that the capability was there, and that was part of the reasons that we've looked to deploy that.
Oliver, do you happen to know, given it was one note? Anybody? No.
Well, we do use, Tanya, we do use magic notes. We are piloting it. I couldn't give that sort of specific answer to that, but I agree with Vic in terms of the potential.
Thomas Smith has said, how do you deal with openness and transparency when using AI in your work? For example, do you use disclaimers to inform customers? Who wants to pick up that one?
I'll jump in on this one. Sorry, guys, I'm talking quite a lot here. I'm not usually used to the sound of my own voice. So we have a really wonderful AI policy, and it's part of our mandate to ensure complete transparency with our residents. So we update residents regularly through community forums, posts on websites. We have a very fantastic digital team who is very, very up on all of the comms and notices that go out. It's but again, it's typically hitting the people that are digitally enabled, and we're not. I don't think we've explicitly gone out and written physical letters to anyone who's digitally excluded to advise them that we're using it. But we're trying to be as updated as we can, transparent as we can. The first thing that I think that we did was a really wonderful AI policy that outlined how we're going to use it and set out the commitments of how we're going to advise all of our residents that we are going to be using AI and how it's going to affect them.
Oliver, you were nodding when I asked the question. It's a bigger issue, isn't it, this, than necessarily individual councils, I think?
It is, absolutely. And it speaks to the point around accountability, around when decisions are being made using artificial intelligence. And the first step in that is being transparent about using AI, and also detailing how decisions are made using AI across that process. The best organizations are the ones that are able to do both of those things and incorporate into that decision making an option for a person to say, I don't actually want to speak to an AI. I don't want a decision being made by artificial intelligence, providing me with recommendations or providing me with a decision on a particular service or application, and then speak to a human as an alternative. So I think that it's absolutely critical to build that into the implementation of using artificial intelligence within services. So you can have that dual track. So at any point you can say, I actually want to speak to a human rather than to speak to artificial intelligence. I think it's particularly important when thinking about things like the use of AI in call centers, for example.
And Timothy, that comes back to your point, doesn't it? That hopefully the AI has freed up the human to be able to deal with when people need that human interaction.
Exactly that, Tanya. Yeah, exactly that. And I think it is about us using it responsibly, transparently. I think Vic and Oliver have sort of set it out well. It is about transparency and giving people those options. AI policy and councils setting out how they're going to use it is really important.
Vic, you're in again because Chris Owen says, how does Vic bring her fellow elected members on the journey so that they all understand the benefits that AI can bring?
So I'm not entirely sure if it's the same across all of their councils, but we have a rather wide cohort of elected members. Some are in their 30s and understand tech, and some are in their 80s and really don't. So I try my very best to provide analogies so that they understand how it's working, what the value is, and what the benefits that they bring. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say that all the members are always on the same page with me at all times. In fact, there are 2 members that just say, Vic, if you're happy with it, then I think I can get on board. I don't know how it works or how it's going to impact, but I trust that I trust your decision, and I trust that you know what you're doing. So sometimes it's a bit of an uphill battle, but I do desperately try to make that. I provide monthly updates to the administration, and I make myself available to the opposition, both the main opposition party and the minority party, to answer all of their questions. And in fact, I'm quite regular contact with several members of the minority party who ask me lots of questions about digital tech, AI, and transformation. And I try to make sure that I'm as open and as honest with them as I would be my own party, in order to make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, we don't want politics getting in the way of learning. This is a question that slightly frightens me from Dale Edwards. Are there examples of local authorities who are using AI to deliver staff training, such as using AI avatars as presenters? I am completely anti that. Can I just say AI as presenters, it's not happening. And developing content for use on a learning portal. Is Vic going to jump in on this one again on staff training?
I've not come across it. And
has
in fact,
anybody?
I've only came across one instance of this in my working life as well.
And I'm hoping that you're going to say avatars as presenters just didn't work for you.
No.
Timothy?
Well, I was going to say, I mean, not exactly answering to the question, but something we have done, going to Vic's thing about prompts, you can use AI to sort of role play. So it's not exactly answering it, but it is a sort of similar thing, especially around sort of call contact centers. So you can role play for training, the responses from the AI to the resident in a role play.
Cami Bailey said, there are many branches of AI. Could I ask those on the panel who have adopted AI within their respective organizations what AI models are used across different functions, for example, customer-facing, internal, back-office admin work? Oliver, do you want to pick up on that first?
Yeah, so I mean, broadly, the way we think about the different types of AI, you can split it really into two. I mean, there are multiple branches, but ultimately there's narrow AI, which is pre-ChatGPT, generative models, and then generative AI. And they are used for very different things. So the narrow AI, which is mainly around how do you predict patterns within numbers, can be used to describe what trends that have happened in the past. It can predict what future scenarios are going to happen, and it can do very well in terms of prescribing them the potential options for you as a local government, whether you're sort of creating a strategy or policy. Generative AI basically finds patterns in text. And it can be really useful for creativity and for creating documents. And really, there's no real sort of one solution for different tasks within local government. It's usually a mixture of all of those different types of AI models. So you can use a predictive AI, which is narrow AI, which can understand trends within your particular area. And you can then use generative AI on top of that to create a sort of initial first draft of a strategy around, I don't know, whatever it could be, social care, for example. So it's not really sort of like one or the other. There will be particular uses for different AI models.
A very quick one back to you from Ian Vaughan. How many jobs will be lost, Oliver, in that £30 million savings project, and from what areas of local government? I suppose that's one of the big ones with AI, isn't it? How many jobs are going to go?
Yep. My response to this is always whether you have job losses or whether you use that productivity gain in other ways is entirely up to the council. And entirely up to the organization that implements artificial intelligence. The way that which you could use those productivity gains, that £30 million, is to shift people from coordinating to care. So social workers, 80% of their time, according to one statistic, is used in administrative tasks. So, what could you do in order to provide a better level of service and better deliver care by shifting away from just doing the administration to providing that frontline service? So, and whenever anyone says to me, "Oh my God, artificial intelligence is coming for your jobs," I always say, well, actually, local authority is already overburdened. It's already sort of running a deficit in terms of how many services and the quality of services it can provide. That productivity gain can be used to do things better, quicker, and more cost effective. That doesn't mean cutting jobs at all.
But I'm really sorry. There are still more questions to go. I think the feedback from this one session probably needs to be an hour long, because I've still got 5 or 6 questions to go at, but we've already overrun by 10 minutes. I'm conscious of all of you have jobs to do and councils to run and things like that. Thank you so much. And thank you for all of your questions that have come in.